The wage gap has got to be one of the most persistent and misleading pieces of misinformation of our time. So yes, this is another video on the wage gap.
But for most American women, one thing they might want is to be paid the same as men.
But they are paid the same. They just don't earn the same amounts.
And one prominent man currently agrees.
But he is under the delusion of the faulty pay gap statistics.
As is so often the case for this president, his laudable goal was muddled right from the outset.
Today, the average full-time working woman earns just 77 cents for every dollar a man earns. Equal pay for equal work. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that complicated, and as long as he hasn't overlooked something which complicates this significantly, everything should still be on track.
In 2013, female staffers in the Obama White House were paid less than 88 cents for every dollar paid to male staffers.
Well, that's okay, that's okay. Maybe that just means the president was 88% sincere when he talked about equal pay.
Except that the White House itself has actually dealt with those claims, and then said that women in the White House are paid equally for their work, because those statistics are misleading and leave out many variables.
I would say a couple of things about this. We know that closing the gender wage gap is a key part of our economic agenda, women's agenda, and here at the White House, equal pay legislation deems that there should be equal pay for equal work, and that's what we have. And
with that, all anyone could focus on was not how to fix this problem, but how to quantify it.
The attention shifted from this is a problem to does this problem actually exist? Because there is no point with trying to deal with a problem when that problem is imaginary.
The Labor Department itself, the president's own Labor Department, says it's 81 cents.
Another federal study, for example, says the disparity is more like 88 cents for every dollar.
The studies do show that when you do the controlling, there's about a 9% gap.
The wage gap is really somewhere between 5 and 7 cents.
Women who do not get married have virtually no wage gap. They earn 96 cents for every dollar a man makes.
Wouldn't any of this inconsistency lead you to believe that maybe this wage gap bullshit is actually bullshit?
Look, even if 96 cents is the number, which it isn't.
I have a couple things to say here. Firstly, arbiter of truth, tell me more. Secondly, for all we know that number could be closer to 0, once factoring in more variables, of course.
Let me put this in terms that are perhaps easy to understand. If someone takes a dump on my desk, the size of the dump is not the issue.
So wouldn't that be all the more reason to stop spreading misinformation about the wage gap? If someone had brought in their guinea pig to work and it left a pea-sized shit smear on my desk, it's not going to help anyone for me to claim that my co-worker has completely covered my desk in their shit. So if you take a shit on my desk, don't expect me to claim that 23% of my desk is covered in shit.
I'm not going to say, well, how big of a dump is it? 8 inches? 10 inches? Oh, just 3 inches?
Or maybe no one has taken a shit on that desk and it's just someone being delusional. Because it makes no sense for a shit left on the desk to be constantly changing size.
And so this is where we are right now. The One Equal Pay Act in Congress has already been killed and there is seemingly nothing on the horizon.
The One Equal Pay Act? Are you fucking serious? You just conveniently ignore all other laws in place that enforce equal pay for equal work. Like the Equal Pay Act from 1963, the Education Amendments Act from 1972, or the Fair Pay Act from 2009. Any further legislation is basically unnecessary and redundant.
But to listen to some, that's not a problem, because not only does the gap barely exist, if it does, it's actually women's fault.
Women make different choices about what kinds of jobs they seek. They make different choices in reaction to marriage and childbirth. When those factors are taken into consideration, studies have indicated that the pay gap all but evaporates.
Classic. Women are paid less because they choose to have children.
Except that wasn't what was said at all. He said they make different choices in reaction to marriage and childbirth. Basically saying women that are married or have children make less career-orientated choices. And there is nothing wrong with that, because women have the right to make these choices.
Although, to be fair, they didn't technically choose to be the sole gender biologically capable of pregnancy.
The fact that biologically only a female can get pregnant only means that men do not have the choice to get pregnant. So men didn't choose to be the sole sex biologically incapable of pregnancy either, just fucking deal with it. Also, a individual woman's choice on whether or not to have a child is still their choice as an individual, and that's precisely what is wrong with the pay gap, the neglect for individuals' choices.
The second popular argument for why the wage gap is women's fault is that they choose to enter lower-paying professions.
So what do you want, a female cleaner to get paid the same as a male mining engineer? Because that is fucking retarded.
When you compare men and women in the same positions with the same experience, the same education, there is no pay gap. You need to look at, yes, what the position is, and you need to compare apples to apples, not pick and choose.
Okay, apples to apples. Okay, well, in which case, I actually have a question for you. How do you like these apples?
A recent study out of Yale University that is interesting, where professors were given the identical resume. One had the name John on the top, and one had the name Jennifer on top. And the male candidate was rated more favorably, and
really?
They were offered on average $4,000 more than the female candidate.
And there are many problems with that Yale study which lead it to be completely useless when it comes to real-world application. Firstly, there is a strong chance that the study was conducted purely in the interest of pushing a political view, which is a problem regardless of whichever view it's trying to push. The fact that the study only looks at the results after handing in a resume, and not present any results of what would happen after being interviewed, or any other step of employment for that matter, would indicate that the gender difference measured in the study could completely disappear at any other stage of employment, meaning that the results shown in that study become useless in reality. Also, there's the fact the study only looks at the STEM fields, which means in the context of any other occupation the study becomes completely useless. The fact that they only look at STEM fields, which is male-dominated, also means that we don't know if a man were to be presented with a lower salary after handing in a resume to an employer of a female-dominated occupation. For all we know, the difference may only exist because of the difference of how common the names are in the context of the occupation, which could indicate that the name Mary, Linda, Susan, or Jennifer could result in a higher salary than someone with the name Abraham, for example. But the study decides to conveniently ignore all of this.
Okay, so it seems we either address the root of this problem and fight entrenched sexism in our society.
Are you really that sure that it is caused by sexism? Because I have an immense amount of doubt towards that.
Or all women simply change their names to John.
Are you really sure that is going to help? Because generally it's people with the more common names that fare better in the workplace. A woman with the name John is severely uncommon, thus she may actually be worse off as a result.
Don't despair just yet, because apparently if women can just hang in there is hope.
If you're unmarried and childless between the ages of 35 and 43, the statistics show you make $1.08 on average to every male dollar.
So there you have it, ladies. If you can just remain single, not accidentally have children, and never turn 44, you're gonna be golden.
So the fact that there are certain demographics of women that out-earn their male counterparts wouldn't lead you to believe maybe that demographic of women make more career-orientated choices, thus the women that earn less make less career-orientated choices. How can that not cross your mind at all? Also, you seem to be celebrating the fact that there is a demographic of women that out-earn their male counterparts, which makes no sense whatsoever, once you consider your outrage of when the reverse occurs.
Now some people are always going to want to pay women less, even if it is, let's say, 83 cents on the dollar.
And those people can be sued for sexual discrimination.
But if we're not going to get legislation...
But you already do have legislation. I think you need to get your prescription fixed because you are fucking blind.
It should at least be obvious who is choosing to do that.
You, in your own imagination.
So to that end, we would like to suggest this.
Are you a middle-aged man running a financial firm or a multinational conglomerate? Do you find that pushy female employees have been nagging you with unreasonable demands for equal pay?
But do you want to save even more on your employee wages? Simple, just hire women. But companies don't do that because the wage gap is severely unrealistic.
What if I told you about a revolutionary new product that lets you pay women just as much as men?
Pay men less as well. Again, companies don't do this because they don't pay women less.
Without sacrificing the sheer convenience of paying them less. Introducing Ladybucks, dollars for female employees that are worth just 83 cents on the dollar.
I am not sure if you are aware of this, but companies do not care about the sex of their employees. What they care about is how much profit they make. If they found out that they can get away with paying women that much less, then they would do either one of two things. 1. Just hire women, or 2. Pay men less as well. So if such a system existed where you can have certain employees paid 23% less, that system would likely be moved to cover all employees. Or all employees that are not under the system would suddenly end up losing their jobs, or maybe even eventually, whatever way is more convenient for the workplace.